We're talking today about,
Sorry.
I'm
Set the microphone off.
awesome. So we had just a little bit of technical difficulty. Sorry about that. So you saw me talking and didn't hear me talking. So today we're talking about the alpha female. Are you one or do you know one and hate her? And we also have the his and hers perspective on that. So you might notice that our panel is a little different today. So we have the his perspective with Rusk Elatasi and John David. And then for the female perspective, we've got Alicia, who is back with us. Yay, thank you. And then I also have Marisol Reyes joining us today, who will have a little bit of a different spin on the hers perspective on the alpha female. And again, just real quick, want to remind you guys that this is an interactive talk show. So when you've got things that you want to say, please be sure to put it in the comments so that way we can read it off. If you've got questions for us, ask them because we will actually answer them. And Jen, thank you for letting us know about the sound. And Brandy, thank you for joining us too and letting us know about the sound. So I'm just going to go ahead and get in it. And so the first thing that I thought would be a good idea would be to make sure that we all kind of have the same perspective on what exactly do we think an alpha female is. So anybody want to? Uh-oh. I'm a little afraid to hear somebody's opinion.
Well,
So.
I think I like to talk about maybe the misconception of what an alpha female is initially, because I think that's where I think people get off the track, that it's a very demanding woman. It's one that's very controlling, that it absolutely decides to micromanage every aspect of a husband's or a boyfriend's or everyone that she works with life. And I don't necessarily think that's the case. There may be some characteristics or traits of an alpha woman with those kinds of personalities, but I also think that it's also somebody that is punctual. I also think that it's a woman that does what she's going to say she's going to do, that you can rely on, that is loyal to you. And I think those are some of the characteristics that are kind of overlooked. I think it's just somebody, because a woman is in charge of a major corporation or has her own business, that she has to be, something that is hard to get along with. And I don't think that's the case. I think there's a lot of other good characteristics that an alpha female brings to the table.
I have to say that I really liked that.
Are you married to her?
Is she sitting next to you?
A little bit of experience. Yeah.
No, I have to agree.
Yeah.
I think an alpha female is usually determined, goes for what she wants, and just does it. The misconception sometimes may be where it's how she goes about it. But I agree.
Yeah, the delivery tends to be a little bit of an issue for an alpha female, and I think it's not a conscious thing. It just sort of happens, and sometimes I'm super self-aware sometimes of the way I approach someone or I talk to someone, because I can be very serious, and instead of being more open and loving, like I can be when I know somebody and I'm like all about you, but I tend to approach a person very cautiously. I don't smile quite as soon as people would want me to, or I don't agree with something right away. I tend to sort of think things through more. I will, I consult myself and my previous knowledge before I go outside of anything or anyone for help. I think that's one of those characteristics that I think is an alpha female.
See, and we were talking, like we talked earlier about, is it something that kind of comes with age too? Because we talked about the younger generation, how a lot of them are very, loud and immediately express their opinion and that kind of thing. And I think that I've noticed, like in reflecting back, I know that in my 20s and in my 30s, as like alpha or whatever, just very, very expressive with my thoughts and opinions and letting people know when I felt that like something needed to be a certain way or whatever. And that as I have gotten more mature, I won't say older, that I have kind of come back in that and being a little bit more reserved with that. So I wonder how much of that is age versus the actual like personality kind of thing.
Do you think you learned how to communicate better, maybe?
Seeing that's an excellent question, because sometimes I wonder if I've learned how to communicate better or if I've just learned to shut up.
Okay.
Or
Like-
to keep your opinions
Well,
to
sometimes
yourself.
there is better communication.
This is true, yeah.
Well, because I always heard you were blessed with 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in the direct proportion that you were given. So,
Nice.
Yeah, this is true. So, Alicia, you know what your, not your faults, but you
Yeah.
know where you think you
Yeah.
might need some help.
Absolutely.
Now that you're conscientious of that, do you think that helps you?
Yes, I do, and I think I work on it consistently. And I feel like I have to be consistently working on it, because if I'm not, then I'm not approaching situations the best way I can, because I'm so committed to, I know what's right, I know what I need to do, and you're doing it wrong, and I'm not going to, I'm not going to follow your lead because you don't know what you're doing. So I tend to do that, and instead I need to be, and Rusk has helped me through this, like, okay, step back and open yourself up a little bit more, because you could probably be learning from someone. But I'm so dead set on how I do things and the way I approach things that, it's been my downfall. Even in my business, I've been so committed to doing it a certain way that I'm like, I'm not going to budge. And then all of a sudden Rusk is like, okay, you got to budge now. You got to go look outside of yourself and help and get some help. Because whatever you're doing isn't working, you need to ask somebody to help you out.
Now do all that
But
with
I
a
won't
smile.
do it. Right. Exactly.
I was gonna say, I know that we just got a whole lot of likes on what you were talking about there, what you were sharing. I know.
Look at
'cause-
me. I mean, like, I'm angry.
That's why I said now do it with a smile.
See what I'm saying? That's exactly what I'm saying.
I know, because I know, like, I have learned, like you're talking about, like, someone will tell me, or like, especially like, God love him, man behind the scenes, Mike Mead, who will suggest things. Like, for instance, this talk show, like him actually, and because it wasn't my idea, I totally bucked it for a long time. Like, no, I'm not doing that. That's just ridiculous. No. And so just having to come along, because,
Yeah.
and again, it was that whole thing, like, I know better. I know better what to do with my business than you do. And I'm really glad that I came up with the idea of doing the talk show, and so, it's just I'm really glad for that.
That's
And
great.
so it's learning how to, because I mean, even a few years ago, I probably would have been like no, and just like ixnayed it and
Sure.
wouldn't be here doing this.
You
so.
brought up a point about individualism earlier, and I don't think individual necessarily is specifically alpha or specifically beta. I think individualism is just a part of the social fabric of society at large, especially in this country. And I think as the younger generation that succeeds us, I just think that with the social media and the ability to express themselves, I just think that's just, I think that as an alpha, the misconception is that you're more individualistic, you're more self-centered, and that's not necessarily the case. You can also be, as an alpha, you also can be stubborn, but you also are typically well-read. You're also typically, you're informed, and that comes off as being individualistic because you can also be opinionated, but I don't think that's specific to an alpha. I think individualism is just something that's across the board. And I think as your younger brothers or sisters, or I see kids, 16, 17, my boys, it's all about themselves. They can, that's just the way society's moving in this particular time.
Absolutely. So when I was doing some of my research for this particular topic, I came across some things that I kind of read about, and Rusk started us off very nicely on the positive parts of. By the way, Karen, Tara, and Anna, thank you so much for joining us in the conversation. Again, remember that this is something for you guys to go ahead and join and do comments and that kind of thing, and ask questions as well. So, but these were some descriptors that I found about alphas. So that alphas are difficult, that we became alphas because of a lack of trust. That was something that you talked about, like at the beginning, that we all came from, like it's rooted in something. Another one that, like, some of them made me very angry when I was reading them, like that we are at war with the men in our lives, as well as probably the beta women in our lives. Trinette, thank you for joining. And so what I wanted to know is, do you guys agree? Do you agree that, as a whole, that alphas are difficult, and that we're there because of a lack of trust, and that we're at war with the people in our lives?
I don't think that they're difficult. That's my personal experience,
Yeah.
but it all depends on everybody's own personal experience.
Right.
There's nature, and then there's nurture. There's both. Some people become alphas, through nurture, and some are just born to be an alpha personality. So I don't think they're difficult. Maybe because my personal experience, I'm an alpha myself, and I know how to deal with another alpha. But maybe a beta personality, or personality that doesn't necessarily jive or is cohesive with an alpha, is necessarily work. But I've seen a lot of relationships where you've had very strong women and very quiet, subdued men, and it works for them.
Yeah.
Because they kind of fill one not necessarily fills a void,
They
but
balance each
they
other
balance
out.
each other out. And so the automatic assumption is that if you're both alphas, that you're constantly worried sometimes. But we also know as alphas that we learn not to step on each other's toes.
Right.
So so we just kind of realize that that's the way you are, that's the way I am, and that's just the way it's going to be, because we see the bigger picture in the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a healthy alpha and there's also an unhealthy alpha. And I think what perhaps starts the journey for somebody to become an alpha, maybe it is a part of their personality, that's just how they operate. But like we're talking about, there are reasons for why people do what they do. And I think a lot of the alphas that I have come across has been some kind of experience where they didn't have control and weren't in control. They were, trying to make things work, trying to make things happen and get a particular result. And the only way they knew to go about it was by being that force of nature in that particular environment or situation that brought that out of them. And then when we continue to do those kinds of things, then it becomes habitual. And I think you were talking about, maturing or developing in, communication skills. And I think, along that path, along that journey is where we understand ourselves more and how
Right.
to interact with other people given that strength. So I don't think strength equals like you're a bitch, but that you are strong, and we all have a masculinity and a femininity to us, and
Yeah.
it's just embracing both of those aspects and how you express that to people, a team, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yes.
Let me pop in here. And Mike, I don't know if you could do me a favor, but scroll down just a little bit, because Jen wrote a comment. So Jen said, in my late 20s, I was intimidated by alpha females. I saw them as abrupt and know-it-alls. Now approaching my 40s, I seek out alphas as mentors. How to check my own insecurities.
It's a great point.
It's a great point, because I know, like, Alicia and I were both talking earlier
Yeah.
that, like, we've had a lot of people tell us that we are intimidating. And then I know that for me, like, hearing that,
It hurts.
almost, yeah, it hurts. It almost
It
kind of
hurts.
hurts. I know, I
Yeah.
think a lot of times, too, people think that alphas don't, like, that, like, we don't have feelings or
Yeah.
something like that.
No.
It's kind of like,
Yeah,
no, like,
no,
that
and
hurts.
it does. But I also realize that alphas also seek out other alphas as
Yeah.
mentors, because we also want a little bit of validation that we're headed in the right place, we're in the right direction.
Yeah.
Even though we can be a little forceful, and I'm learning to not be so forceful and not to be so opinionated and not to be so headstrong, because I realize that the more I do that, the less I'm learning and growing,
Less productive.
and
Yes.
the less productive I
Absolutely.
am, and
Yeah.
it
Absolutely.
isn't to my benefit. So yeah. But I'm starting to recognize that about myself a lot more.
Yeah.
Something that came to mind when you said validating, I guess in the coaching industry that means a particular thing, but what came to mind was maybe a question for the audience, like, is your alpha-ness or strength coming from a place of force or from a place of just like it's flowing? I think if you're trying,
There's a
Is
need.
it-
then
Yeah.
there's a
It's
force
a
to
natural
it.
thing.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
principle
Natural.
that I learned in my training that says doing is work, being is effortless. So if you're just being who you are, then that's just a natural flow
It's a
of
natural
how you
thing, yeah.
operate.
Sure.
But if you're trying to push or make something happen, that's straining,
Sure.
your
And it isn't healthy.
That's
right, and
Right.
Yeah,
it isn't.
it is
Yeah.
Well,
counterproductive.
but to a point, because like you said, you're trying to change some things.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's going towards the positive.
It is,
So
absolutely.
it just, I guess it just depends in how much of it you're trying just to better yourself without faking it. Does
Sure.
that make
But
sense?
there's
Right,
there's an innate need to have to achieve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
that
think so.
Absolutely.
naturally gives you that passion and that forcefulness, because inside of you, you just know you have it in you to achieve.
Absolutely,
And to attain greatness and to be there and to become something.
Sure.
So that kind of comes out, and it might be a little too forceful and it might be a little bit too strong, but inside of you, you're just going to sleep every single night thinking, gosh, I could have done this, I could have done that, I didn't achieve this, and so your expectations are always super high, super high, super high.
So I kind of have the same expectations, though. I go to bed thinking the same thing. I have the same passion.
So then,
I still
then
have
it's an
to want-
innate,
But
natural
do you
thing.
execute on it?
I do.
You do.
I mean, that's why
so then
I
you're not
am
a true
where I
beta,
am.
though. So you're kind of like a hybrid.
Sorry.
You're a hybrid.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
So,
a hybrid.
so just so you guys know, like
I'm trying.
Because the difference
Marisol is here because she had identified as because I shared some of the characteristics of being a beta, and she had identified a little bit more with being a beta.
and she could be
that kind
90% beta, but she
Yeah.
can have just one aspect of her
Absolutely.
personality. Well, that's
Yeah.
good because that's
Or maybe
that's,
I just
think,
want to be more of
I
a
think
beta.
that is the essence. I think that's the essence of an alpha is that we don't dither, we don't procrastinate, we think about stuff and then we execute. We don't waste time doing it. We don't say
Yeah,
we're going to get
that's-
around 2 to 6 months, 9 months. We want to do it. You want to remodel your house, we call somebody the next day. You want to go on a vacation, you get it done. You just don't talk about doing it. You actually get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of my pet peeves are around like who somebody is like I don't think that anybody is alpha or whatever personality test that you take
Sure.
and it says like
Right.
who you are and how you operate. I think we create who we want to be.
Sure.
And in understanding life, like I coach a lot of my clients, men or women, how to play in the game of life, and we don't have to be anything specific. We can choose how we approach a particular situation, and that's actually being just very aware, very mindful of who you're talking to, who you're going to be engaged with. So I think, if somebody's alpha or beta or whatever, I think we have the ability to choose how we enter a particular situation. And that's a big thing
So
for
that's
me.
a great
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
That is so. But here's going back to like a conversation. We were having a great conversation before we were on air, by the way. So going back to earlier, like because Marisol, you had talked about how like when you are discussing with your employees. So she owns an assisting hands franchise, and so she has an employees. So she's you made the comment that you make I know that you use the word demands, but like when you're telling your employees what they need to do, that you can be viewed then as like that bitch or whatever. But if a guy comes in and does the exact same thing, says the exact same thing, then all of a sudden it's like,
looked at
oh
as-
wow,
he's
exactly,
respected.
he's a boss, exactly,
Yeah,
he's a
he's the
boss,
boss.
he's a
He's
leader, and that
respected.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's even like the difference between the way that we view, like if you just take alpha, an alpha male and an alpha female, the way that society perceives those kind of things. Because I know, like sometimes when I have, and at least I don't know if you've had that, like when you've done something where you've like your alphaness comes out or whatever, and it
happens all the
totally,
time for-
and you get like I've like got like massively like smacked down, and so it's kind of like it's that whole like I'm being who I'm supposed to be or whatever,
Yeah.
and I did, and it was so nice because I mean I did it in a respectful way, but still like I felt the wrath from it, and so it's just kind of like then how do you find that all?
Well, I think she experiences the same conundrum that you just talked about, and she always calls me her bubble burster. She'll come home with all these ideas and she wants to execute, and I always have to tone it down a notch, and so I think that's probably one of the negative sides of an alpha is that there's a lot of things that you want to get done, but not everything is realistic. Not everything can be accomplished. Some of it just doesn't make sense or it's not counterintuitive. But that comes naturally, flows out of an alpha is that there's all this brainwave activity going on all the time to get something done.
The other thing is, if you're telling people you're an alpha, you're probably not.
Exactly.
Like
Not an alpha,
I
yes.
don't like
Yeah.
it when people say I'm this, I'm that. People should be looking at you and saying what you are. I mean, not like but not saying what you are. But you shouldn't be telling everybody, oh, I'm an alpha female. I'm like, why are you telling people that? And that's not necessarily the greatest thing in the
And now that
world.
you say that, I think when somebody says that, they may be acting in that place, but
Yeah.
it's not genuine.
It's not
like when people
authentic,
say, like,
yeah.
I don't care what anybody says, I do what I do.
Yeah.
Or in fact, you
yeah.
really do care.
Exactly, because you're like,
Sorry.
obviously,
Yeah. I'm
alpha,
sorry.
And alphas are not the. I mean, it may be a version of being an alpha, but it's not the people that are center of attention at a party. It's not
Yeah.
the people cracking jokes all the time.
Yeah.
That may be some gregarious, rambunctious personality come across it. I think it's mistaken for being alphas, because most of those folks, in my experience, when I see them, and they're always the ones making everybody laugh at parties, they don't do well in other aspects of life. To me, it's almost like they're compensating for something. And I'm not trying to throw those folks down. That's great. It works for you because,
Yeah.
social connections and relationships are important in society, and they have more friends than most of us do. But I just don't think that's I think is what, when people think of alpha, is like, oh, I know somebody, he's funny, he's gregarious and all that. I said that's not necessary in alpha. That may be on the fringe of alpha, but that's not how I perceive an alpha.
Exactly. I just real quick want to thank Valerie and Connie, Barbie. I know that I had also seen that Anna had joined, and Kathy, Kirby. Thank you so much for joining in on the conversation. Be sure to ask questions, that kind of thing. And then Sultana, she just said, we create how we want to be. So true. So agreeing with what you were talking about earlier. So, that's your cousin. See, you didn't have to say that. Nobody else would have known.
That's all right.
So thanks for joining us. We
I know I did
appreciate
good
it. So, and just too, it's also kind of like, the question out there is that, sorry, the question just like completely and totally lost my mind. So if I remember it, I will come back to it. So this is a couple of questions for sure. Again, it came out of the research that I was doing, and again, this is for y'all out there as well. But I'm asking first the guys. It was something. So, do you believe that we live in a culture that denigrates men? And the examples that I was given when I had seen that was that. Like we like in sitcoms and in movies and things like that, the guy character is kind of dumbed down,
Sure.
and so it's the alpha female who's the smart one who like rescues the guy or like points out his flaws or whatever. So, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
Well, I've seen both, and I've been
Yeah.
curious like who the producer was of these shows, because I've seen shows or movies where they make the woman the winner or something like that, and
Sure.
the
Yeah.
male's the loser, or vice versa. So I was like, is it a feminist producer or something like that?
I have the same
scorned
thoughts.
woman.
But I guess when you talk about
Yeah,
society
scorned
as a
woman, yes.
whole, I guess it really, I mean, again, I believe that the world and the people in it, there is no such thing as black or white. We live, it's
Never.
all gray.
Very
It is
gray.
all
It's
gray,
all
yes.
gray area, and we have to learn how to
Maneuver.
interact
Yeah.
and be, in that gray area. So, I mean, if it's that way or not, I would say it's both. Yeah.
I don't think of men being denigrated in our society. I just
Yeah.
it's so few and far between. I mean, the shows that I think of is Married with Children, Al Bundy, but I think that's a representation of a certain economic class
Right.
of people, and I see where the sitcom was such a hit. But I just don't think it's the majority. I don't think you see it all the time. I think there's in some situations or some areas of the country that you do experience denigration of men, but I don't think it's.
I think we always go back to talking about Claire Underwood
Yeah.
from House of Cards.
Yes.
Because we were so excited when Claire Underwood finally took over and became the top dog in that show.
Yeah.
Because we really wanted a woman to finally step up and
Sure.
be that. Because it sort of seems like in most shows, they're not.
Right.
Or like Game of Thrones now, all the queens are
Yes.
starting to come together. Like that's sort of where we're kind of heading, and we're kind of gravitating to that sort of
Sure.
thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad. And he goes, yeah, there you go, loving all those shows with those strong women.
Yeah.
It's
I know why
exactly-
you're liking it.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
when it came out, it was
exactly.
one of the first movies from Marvel that actually
Yeah.
featured just the female.
Well, that and being directed by a female and that kind of thing. And I think that the shows where you see like some of the, because you're like, is this directed by a feminist? I'm like, I bet any money if you went back, that's actually all done by men who are misguidingly trying to capture the feminist audience.
Yeah, that may be
I was
true.
gonna say, I mean, I just-
and
I
I want to
think
share
that-
like
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like the Wonder Woman, it's great to have I mean, I love strong women, and then I guess segueing into I don't want to jump into something else,
Go
but
ahead.
strong women attracting or finding love. I think if a male isn't secure in his own self, then
Yeah.
he's going to feel
Sure.
defensive or violated or less
Intimidated.
than towards that woman. But also, as the strong female, are you allowing yourself to be vulnerable and open to allow a man to come into your
And
life
take
as
care
well?
of you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's a good question, because that was one of the things that came up in my research, was that so that the alpha female is that it would be one that would not feel. So this is a good question for y'all out there too, ladies. So do you feel you need a man in your life?
Nope.
So and see now, look, just go ahead. So, do you think that you need a man?
Need in terms
Yeah.
of survival? No.
Just like it was just a general like need
no, but
a
it's
man.
beautiful and it's lovely to find a partner in life.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I told,
Absolutely.
I told my
Need
husband.
in terms of survival? No.
We had this conversation a couple weeks ago. You know, I don't need you. I want you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which
Totally
is a lovely
different.
thing
Totally
to
different.
say.
Yeah.
I think.
Exactly. Because again, that research had showed that was a
Yeah.
terrible precedent for marriage, was that for a woman to
But I think
feel that
that-
she does not
It's a
need.
really
But I
good
think
point.
that's the success to any marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understanding the
Yes.
need and the want
Yes.
between
Yeah.
that relationship, whether it's alpha, beta,
Yeah.
beta, whatever it is. But
Yeah.
I think that's just the basis
It
to
is,
any
yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
To any relationship, even as
Friendships,
girlfriends.
really.
Yeah.
And
you
friendships,
know?
too.
I think that's you don't need it, but you want
You want to
it.
fulfill a person's
Exactly.
And I
desire.
will say
Exactly.
that marriage.
And know what you need and want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
also.
I don't think marriage particularly is not a need, a necessity of the human spirit to feel satisfied, but connection and
Sure.
and having a
love
social
and
life
belonging,
is
yeah.
Yes.
a necessity. And so maybe that's another something part of the alpha female is, are you connecting with
Sure.
people? Because I
Yeah.
think that's important. And myself, I would find myself, being focused and working on something and, striving for success where I was missing that portion of, friends and having somebody to interact with. And I think the same goes for, alpha women.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, if there's an aspect that maybe there's some kind of a void, something missing, maybe it's the personal connection. Maybe
Sure.
it's not marriage, but some form of socialization.
And the other thing I want to add is you get older and you know yourself, you realize that the people who will be with you and who will gravitate to you understand that about you and love you for it anyways. And they know that you're very strong-headed. They know you're very opinionated. They know you're very intense, and they love that about you. And they seek you out whenever they have an issue, or they look for you whenever they need something because they know you're going to come across and you're going to do it and you're going to be there for them because that's who you are as a person. So I think as I get older, I think the friends that I have are the friends that love me for that and for who I am. And they don't want to change me. They don't want to make me become a little less who I am. They just love that. And that's who I
Exactly.
want to be with, and that's okay if it's only a handful. I'm perfectly
Yeah.
fine with that too.
So, and I apologize because I might murder your first name, and I apologize. So is it Annalie?
Anieli.
Annalie, thank you.
Oh, that's
It's another
a pretty
cousin.
name.
She said Supergirl is a good example of trying to capture the feminist audience. I personally love it, but can see how they search for that audience. Exactly. And then Barbie chiming in, need, no, want, yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we said, yeah.
Exactly. And I think that just, to me, I would think that as being the person on the receiving end, so like my telling Mike, no, I don't need you, but I want you, that would be something that would feel better than to be like, no, I need you, kind of
But
thing.
I think there's this traditional sense too that says men want to be needed. They just don't want to be wanted. They want to be needed. They want to be the provider.
Well, and there's situations
And you're not letting them be
and
the provider.
circumstances
You're
for
not
that,
letting them
too.
be the protector. Men want to be the caveman. They want to come in and bring you the food. So
And
I
that-
think
that's
that's
also-
that's
so
also
I'll
the
share this.
another way of looking at it.
Yeah, so there's 6 basic human needs, and one of the ones that men will die for and probably some the alpha women is significance, the need to feel important, the need to feel
Acknowledgement,
valuable,
yeah.
the need to feel recognized, appreciated. So the epitome of somebody who dies for significance but lacks a lot of personal development is our president. Significance, significance, significance. Not
Seeking
saying
it out all the
yeah,
time.
that's significance. And so, what was the question?
Yeah, we were like, where is he going?
I'm going.
Somewhere. I'm going somewhere. So the question was, so like in essence, so
You said
the
the
need
the
versus
needs, the
the
six-
need versus the want. So how does that does that make you feel? Like how does it make you feel if like your girlfriend or your fiance says, you know, I don't need you, but I want you? Like which one feels better for you? Has the more significance for you?
Okay,
Sorry,
that's something different than what I thought I heard. But
It's okay. Go with it. Go
yeah,
with it.
Alpha or your beta.
but yeah, that's part of the need for a man is the need to feel significant, to feel important, and you know from the woman is you know maybe how you can you know support that in that person's life, and then for women, they die for these two, which is maybe not for alpha. I'm not sure. Maybe for some on a certain level is security. The need to feel protected, cared for on a emotional level, protected and cared for, but also love and connection, that social need aspect that I was mentioning. So if women are lacking the security and the love and connection, then they'll feel a particular void.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why relationships are so difficult sometimes. Is there's so many factors that come into play with a
Right.
relationship.
So did you guys ever watch Kathy Connors, by the way, she said need or want, perhaps it's really more about appreciation of your other half. Absolutely true. So I was listening to NPR on the way home yesterday, and I don't know if you guys have watched the show Handmaid's Tale. I have not.
A little bit of it.
But they were talking about one particular scene where essentially, I didn't realize that this is at all, I've never seen it, was that essentially like the government has shut down all of the women's checking accounts. They don't have access to their money anymore. And so there are these two of the main female characters. They are, you know, talking about, oh my gosh, that this can't happen or whatever. And the husband tells his wife, that's okay, I'll take care of you. And the women's like immediate response was like, I don't need you to take care of me kind of thing. But the conversation became then, that was the, so sorry, that was the man's like natural response was to like, you know, what else am I supposed to say then? So like, how does that when you're in with your, in that kind of situation with your wife or with your fiance of like, you know, what would be the better response? Because that was a question that I had. Like, well, I don't know.
But that's
That's a
you
great- that's a great
understanding
question.
that
Yeah.
other person has a purpose also. Like
Yeah.
I said, I don't need my husband, I want my husband, but he does fulfill purposes as well.
But no,
And
like how is the man
appreciation.
supposed to
Oh,
respond
okay.
then to that? You know what I'm saying? It's like if that was his natural response, like well, that's okay, I'll take care of you, kind of thing. And but she's like, "Rawr, no." So like, how then do you? What is then the right response to it?
I
Or
don't think there's.
I agree with you. I don't think there is a right response
Yeah.
to it because that particular show portrays a dystopian society that reverts back to a time in this country that we've moved away from. So I think it's hard for like John and I in our generation to even fathom that we would be needing that we would be the protectors of our wife. At one point, that used to be the case. You know, in the 19th century, when the United States was agrarian, there was a lot of that protectionism of husband over wife. But I just you hardly see that anymore. Especially in our parents, it's a little bit different. But as time goes on, it becomes more and more individualistic, and it's less of a need, it's more of a want. And I can't even think that I'll tell my wife that I'm her protector. I see it as a co-equal relationship,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and we add value to each other, and you know it's not the marriage is just a technicality. It's a means to fulfilling a desire, right? We have
Yeah.
a desire to spend the rest of our lives with somebody, to share those moments, you know, what have you. But I don't see it that way, and it's hard to even think that we would revert back to that. That's why, for example, the president that we have now goes back to that time period, and so it's such a disconnect between then and now.
It could be generational too.
yeah,
You
Yeah,
know?
because the
Absolutely.
generation I care for,
Yeah.
You see that. You see the
Yes.
husband taking care of the wife. and the wife doing everything the husband asks of
Sure.
her. And that worked for that generation, but for our generation, I
Yeah.
think I understand sometimes when I have the need for my husband to care for me, maybe I'm having a bad day. You know, those moments, you have to respect. Like Kathy said, you appreciate those moments.
Yeah.
But that's
yeah.
a need. That's a natural, innate need of support.
Yeah.
And you don't have to necessarily find that
Exactly.
in a spouse. You could find that in a friend, right?
Exactly.
And those
This
are
is
true.
idiosyncratic moments.
Yeah.
It's not
Exactly.
long term.
I think on the other side of the coin is the woman who says, I can think for myself. I can try to go out and find my own way in life. You know, it's nice that you want to protect me, or that's nice that you want to love me and all that, but let me also fulfill my sense of being, of doing. You know, like
Yeah.
you just mentioned earlier, you had that quote where you said you're not just existing, you're doing, there's an action. There's a need for us to go out there. You know, people say, well, your husband can take care of you. Why are you stressing out so much about your shop? It's like, no, it's my life. What?
Yeah.
Can I not have my own ambitions, my own desire to succeed, my own desire to see this shop become what I want it to become, what I envision it, you know? But so many people will say, well, and it's mostly the older generation, but you have Russ. Russ will take care of you. It's like, to me, like, oh my gosh, it's already
Slap
making
in
the
the face.
assumption
Slap
that
in the
I'm going to
face,
fail,
yeah.
and that's okay if I fail, because guess what? You have a husband that will take care of you.
And you need to be
it's
taken care
And I
of.
need to be taken care of. And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing that Russ is there for me, and he's a support system, but he knows very well that I don't want him jumping in, saving me. It's
And
hard for me
and
to ask
she
him
brings,
for that.
She brings those comments, and I've heard those. It's always from our parents or people in their
Older
generation,
generation,
which is
yeah.
ironic because my parents were immigrants, her parents were immigrants, and they all came here seeking a better life. My mother came from communism, my father came from an authoritarian regime, her parents came from economic depravity in northern Mexico, so they all came for a better situation. And then so you bring your kids here so they can prosper, and then you tell them, okay, well, you said now you have a husband that's prosperous, you don't have to be prosperous. Well, you didn't.
Yeah, he didn't raise me to be that.
Exactly.
That's
that
not
girl.
what you raised them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You made sure she got an education.
As
made
she
sure
was saying,
and now,
yeah.
now go back at home and sit at home and don't do anything.
As
Yeah.
she was saying that, I remember growing up as a woman, we can do so many
Yes,
things. You know,
exactly.
you just got to get educated.
Yes.
You just, you have to go for it, and
Yes.
you can dream whatever you want to dream and be whoever you want to be. And then now you're like, oh yeah,
Yes.
you can do that. Yeah, you can do that. But it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Almost like you feel like there's like a little jealous component coming out of your parents a little bit. It's like
Yeah.
sometimes you get a little you're passing them. And as much as they've talked about they want to do better than you, I think when you actually get there or do better, then they start trying to bring you back down.
You think?
Well, I
I don't
think it
think. I
also-
don't think it's a jealous.
Or it's a
I don't think
humility
it's
thing, too,
intentional.
to
I
be-
think
I
it's
think-
cultural.
It's not
Yeah.
intentional. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
It
might
It
be
is cultural.
cultural.
Yes.
But I think it's
Especially
more
for
because.
Hispanic.
Yes.
'cause
Yeah.
I understand that.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think it's jealous. I think it's what you just said. It's culture. It's, don't worry about it so much. Look, I didn't have that, and I turned out well. You
Yeah.
turned out well.
Well, I
you know.
think-
So
Sure.
And I think
it's
some of it
more-
too is that it's that
the
we're
nurturing
doing
part.
things differently.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
exactly.
and so like I know
Yeah.
my mom and my grandmother
And they're unfamiliar with
still
that.
exactly. They've never known
They're
anybody
worried
who
about it.
owned
Yeah,
their own
they're
business,
worried. They
that
don't
kind of thing. And so
understand
when
it.
I left that, secure job of teaching or whatever to come and do this to do the videography company with him and everything, they worried about it and everything. You know,
Sure.
like you guys are gonna like.
Yeah.
My mom would always say like, when are you gonna go get a real job? Like, I'm sorry, I have a real job. So I want to real quick too, like read off the comments. So Connie Gomez, thank you so much. She's appreciating the conversation. Great conversation. Jen, love the respect and intelligence in your relationship. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, very nice example right here. And then Connie, I love it, Alicia. Yes, while our husbands are awesome
Yeah.
providers, we can be co-providers, and it is very different from our parents. My mom is very independent, and while she understands me and all that I do, she also feels like I should stay home
Yeah.
and be a stay-at-home mom. LOL, but I can't. Exactly. I know I have a lot of that with my parents as well.
Sure.
Just kind of like, yeah, you need to be doing like, why aren't you staying with that?
Yeah.
They finally, after almost 10 years, are like,
Yeah, it's
yes,
difficult
okay.
for that generation
Yeah.
to break out of its shell and see them from a more progressive light, that they can that your kids can actually do more And it's just like back to what I said. I find it amazingly ironic that they would come here and then they want to keep you back to the way they were doing things when they were growing up.
Yeah, and I think
Exactly.
that brings it back down to maybe they've been operating for so long and it's habitual
Sure.
in just the security need.
Yeah.
To be secure,
Yeah.
to be taken care for,
Yes.
to be okay, and that's where they're operating from.
Yeah.
And then going back to, at the beginning you mentioned, like, there's, this need to, want more and
Yes.
be more and go after more. And that's actually in the peak of where the magic happens of the human needs, which is contribution and growth.
Self-actualization,
Right.
basically.
Yeah. Because if we're not growing or progressing, we don't feel like we're moving towards anything, or like we lose a sense of meaning and
You're
purpose.
losing
Yeah.
yourself, which
You're
is
just
inside.
there without any meaning
Yeah.
and purpose, and that's why the growth aspect is important. And then the contribution is the need to pour back into the world, into society. There's an actual need there, because we're hardwired. Actually, there's a research. There was a study that we're hardwired to give. That it's natural that when we
Sure.
give, there's dopamines and
Yeah.
a release of
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
feeling that comes along with that.
Sure.
And so for women to be strong, to contribute and to grow, that's a human need.
It is,
yeah.
Yeah, and I find it very sweet and loving when he says to me, "Well, you figure it out. You know how to figure it out." And you know why? Because you know what? I can figure it out. He's not giving me the solution,
Yes.
which I don't want a solution. I just want you to hear me out. I'm struggling. I'm having a hard day today.
Yeah.
And sometimes the guys are like, "Well, let me see how I can fix it." No, and he'll say, "Figure it out. You can do it. You're a smart girl.
Yeah.
You can do it." And I'm okay with that, because
Yeah.
that means he knows that I have the capacity in my mind and myself
Exactly.
to achieve. And I think that's the partnership that we've always had, that and he says it, we're not going to step on each other's toes. So
Yeah.
we know we can very easily.
Very easily.
Or I'll step on that big head of his.
Well, I just looked at the time, and we've actually been, this has been a great conversation, and we've definitely gone a little bit longer than we usually do, because it's been so awesome.
It's been great.
It has been very great. The way that we always wrap up the show is we let everybody kind of share what might be coming up within your business, that kind of thing. So if you've got any events coming up, that kind of thing, any specials, please, I'm just going to let us go around the table and share what you've got going on. So, John, you got anything going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a co-founder of Growthly, which is a co-working space, but also we have executive suites, learning labs, which are classrooms, because we understand that people like to learn, but they don't like to go to class. So we have event space for people to do workshops, their own little seminars or meetups, different things like that. And we have a video studio in case you wanted to shoot videos and stuff like that. And so that's Growthly. So you can go to growthly.com and check out all of that stuff. But I'm stepping out of that role, my big role in Growthly, and stepping more into my coaching practice. And so I'm building out a couple of courses. I am, taking on one-on-one clients, which I particularly coach, aspiring entrepreneurs, no matter what age or gender. I work, greatly with men, and it's basically to overcome the obstacles and hurdles mentally, emotionally, and just gain the skills to succeed. Yeah. So
I am the owner of Assisting Hands Home Care, and with post Harvey, what we would like to know is if there's anyone in need of certain supplies or food or just hands to help out, just give us a call. You can find us on the web. It's www.assistinghands.com.
Awesome. Speaking of Harvey and everything, I have an event coming up on October 12th. It's called the Women of Impact. I have some fantastic speakers. I've got Courtney Wyckoff of Mama Strong. I have Carissa Littlejohn of She Flies Solo that are going to be speaking. And with that, portions of your ticket sales as well as vendor spots, which are available as well, and sponsorships, a portion of that money will be going to two different places. One, directly into the hands of families that have been impacted by Harvey, as well as to the Pink Giraffe House. That's a shelter for homeless teens in the Montrose area, and she has actually seen, since Harvey, she's seen a greater influx of teens coming in. So money, that event will actually be putting money into all of those hands to help them with their recovery process.
Hi everyone, I'm Alicia. I'm the owner of Thinking Boutique, and so I want to invite everyone to this Saturday. We're having a pre-fall preview fashion show, and we were closed for a while, but we really need you guys to come back and support us again. Support your local businesses, support your small businesses. We suffered also through the situation that we all encountered in the city of Houston, but we're ready to get back on track. Don't forget us when you're out there shopping and you're heading to the mall. Make a little detour and go into a little boutique. And I hope to see you guys. It's going to be this Saturday from 12 to 3.
I'm excited, looking forward to it.
I know.
I am Russ Galatasi. I am the owner of River Oaks Goodyear. I have been there for almost 20 years. I can tell you guys that if you ever need any help with any of your vehicles, if you want to have a car inspected before you purchase it, because I know there's a lot of used cars out there that are probably in the integrity of those vehicles are probably compromised a little bit, I guess as you can say, please feel free to bring it by on the corner of Westheimer and Wesleyan. And we've been there forever. I got mechanics of 30, 40 years of experience. We've got to check it out for anybody that needs some help.
Awesome. And thank you to Alicia for, as always, hosting the talk show here at Thinking Boutique. This is a great place, not just for shopping too, but also for holding your events, that kind of thing. And I keep being told to look that I'm looking in the wrong spot, so sorry. But thank you everyone so much for joining in on the conversation today. Thank you to all of my panelists. I appreciate it. And remember to shop and support local. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Yay.